Okay, so imagine trying to find your way through a hurricane. That's honestly what family court can feel like for people in crisis. Today, we're going to dig into a really innovative system that's designed to be the eye of that storm. A structured approach that helps turn all that chaos into clarity, not just for families, but for entire communities.
And this quote, it gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? This isn't really about software or some complicated legal process. At the end of the day, it's about giving control and stability back to families when they are at their absolute most vulnerable.
So to really get why a system like this is so critical, we have to first look at the problem it's trying to solve. For families going through a crisis, the court system often feels less like a path to getting things sorted out and more like just an overwhelming storm of confusion.
Think about it. When families are at their lowest point, what do they actually need? It's not abstract legal theories, right? They need clear, practical help. They need the system to be able to spot real risks, things like coercive control. They need guidance in plain English, not legalese. And maybe most of all, they just need a simple map to understand how the whole thing works so they don't accidentally make a terrible situation even worse.
And here's a really crucial point. The problem isn't that the lawyers, judges, or social workers don't care. They do. The problem is a lack of a shared system. Everybody is kind of operating in their own silo, without a common language. And that disconnect, that's what fuels the confusion and instability for families caught in the middle.
So, what's the solution then? Well, it's not about making people work harder. It's about helping them work smarter together. And that requires a system built on a really simple but powerful idea, a shared language that everyone in a family support network can use.
The system's called CoTrackPro, and it's what's known as a closed-loop support system. All that really means is that it takes messy, real-world events and translates them into clear, trackable actions that produce verifiable proof. It's all about connecting the dots, from the problem all the way to a resolution.
So how does it actually work? Well, the entire system is built on something super simple, just 5 shared words. Role, who's doing the thing. Trigger, what just happened. Workstream, what's the repeatable process we follow. Artifact, what's the documented proof we get at the end. And finally, handoff. How do we clearly pass the task to the next person? That's it.
This shared vocabulary is the absolute key. Because suddenly, a law student, a legal aid attorney, and a judge are all speaking the same language. They're all working from the same playbook. And for the first time, it creates a predictable, repeatable process. Okay, so that's the theory. But what does this system actually look like in practice? How does it really guide a family from that state of chaos to a place of clarity?
The mission is pretty simple, but so powerful. Take the emotional, tangled, unstructured stories that families bring in and methodically turn them into the clear, documented evidence that the legal system can actually understand and, act on.
And here's the transformation. I mean, look at this. Before, a client might just show up with a phone full of chaotic texts and screenshots. After, that mess is organized into a clean chronology and an exhibit list. Before, you might hear a vague complaint like, they keep changing their story. But after, you have a concise summary that shows a clear pattern of behavior with sources. This is so crucial. It moves cases away from that he said, she said mess and toward verifiable patterns.
And here's how it works in real time. The trigger library is basically a practical toolkit that links common problems to effective first steps. So, is parenting time being denied? Okay, the system prompts you to start a timeline and use a checklist based on the court order. Getting harassing messages? The first action is to secure the evidence and then use a boundary script. It's literally a playbook for how to respond to a crisis constructively.
All these guided actions, they produce what the system calls artifacts. And these aren't just random documents. They are the tangible, structured pieces of proof. They become the solid building blocks for a clear legal case that can actually move forward.
So what kind of artifacts are we talking about? Well, they can be simple 7-day stabilization plans or safety plans. They can be organized incident logs or communication logs. They can be powerful one-page reports that a judge can grasp in seconds. They can even be entire packets to prepare for a hearing. Every single one is a tool that's purpose-built to create clarity.
But this is so important to remember. This is about way more than just winning in court. The ultimate goal here is to reduce conflict. By bringing structure and predictability to a chaotic situation, the system is fundamentally designed to create lasting stability for the family.
And the impact of this doesn't just stop with a single family. When you zoom out, you start to see this really powerful ripple effect that a structured approach can have on an entire community.
When places like law school clinics adopt this system, they offer 3 profound gifts to their communities. First is clarity, by creating stronger, easier to understand narratives. Second is continuity, making sure families don't get lost or fall through the cracks between different support agencies. And the third is credibility, by helping people move from purely emotional claims to solid, fact-based reporting.
And you can see the benefits are really widespread. Of course, the biggest impact, about 40%, is on child and family stability. But look at the rest. A quarter of the benefit comes from a rebuilding trust and a sense of fairness in the system itself. Another 20% contributes to safer communities and schools. And 15% even goes to workforce development by training a new generation of more effective, trauma-informed professionals. It's a win-win-win.
So, with better documentation and those clear handoffs we talked about, the entire support network, from legal aid to schools to the courts, it all just becomes more efficient. And in a system that's built to handle human crisis, more efficient is almost always more humane.
This quote really just wraps up the whole outcome perfectly. When one part of the ecosystem, like a law clinic, introduces this kind of structure, it doesn't just help one client. It allows the entire network of community systems to function better, to finally, breathe again.
Which leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? We've seen how just a few shared words can bring so much clarity to family law. So what other complex systems out there, maybe in healthcare, in finance, in our own communities, desperately need a simpler shared language to finally work for the people they're actually meant to serve? Something to think about.